All right, good evening, everyone.
What is up?
Good evening.
Howdy do.
Hello.
All right, I'm going to jump right into things tonight. It's already fairly late. The first thing we have on our agenda tonight is some current concerns about William Crosslin. He's a member, for anyone who's not up to date or familiar. He's a member who was banned for 6 months pretty shortly after Dungeon Crawl. And some concerns and thoughts come up about his character and the length and status of his suspension. And so at this time, Hars, if you'd like to read Gideon's message for the recording, please.
Yes, I will. 1 second. Alright, Gideon had typed this up in the chat earlier, and he said, "While I had hoped that William would take his suspension as an opportunity to consider his actions, this has not been the case. Constantly testing the quote-unquote borders of his ban has not reflected well on his character at the time. I am in favor of extending his ban to an indefinite status if necessary. In addition, while no man may be deprived of his right to an opinion, if it comes forward that he has deliberately presented falsehoods as truths as related to Northreach, I believe it may be necessary to submit to him a cease and desist notice on the grounds of slander and libel. Am I reading that right? And consider potential legal action should that behavior continue."
Can we follow up with that reading on what happened so that the people listening are aware of that?
Certainly. During the Renaissance Fair last Saturday, he had actually stopped by, and he was, from what I heard from counts of several people. I was only allowed to give the name of one of them, mostly just because I didn't have the time to ask everybody. But one of them he had spoken to was my heir apparent, Boo, and he had apparently been blatantly saying that what the reason he was banned was for some arbitrary political, everyone's an overly insensitive snowflake BS or whatever, and we've been very public about about the circumstance of his ban, and everybody that was there is still here for that, and they know that's not the case. And she actually sent me a testimony that I had her permission to actually share with this discussion, if people are okay with that.
I don't have a problem with it.
Alright, give me 1 second.
I second that.
All right, real quick, while Hars is getting that, I will share the 2 cents I have to add here. In a minute, I'll be asking Minnie to come up and speak. He's sort of been a point of contact for Mr. Crosslin, and on some Amp Guard related stuff. He's got a project. He, being William, has a project that he's been talking to Minnie about, and he would like to discuss that with the Council of Crowns. Furthermore, a little after Minnie had brought that to my attention, William had contacted me asking if we could have a phone conversation, to which I agreed. He did say that he would like the context of the conversation to stay between us. So I won't get into a bunch of details. But as is relevant, he kind of caught me up on the plan that Minnie is going to discuss. And they sounded like, it's pretty much the same story. Furthermore, he did actually ask me on the whole topic of being at the Ren Fair. He had messaged me to ask if he could be there as a paying customer or if that would be a violation of his suspension. I contacted the Council of Crowns, and obviously this part's more for people listening. You guys are the ones I contacted, so you know, but it was decided by this council that that would, in fact, be a violation of his suspension, purely because his suspension states that he will not be present at any activity hosted by Amped Guard of Alaska. And it was decided that our booth at the Ren Fair was an activity hosted by Amped Guard of Alaska. Now, at no point did we tell him that he could not be present at the Ren Fair itself. We simply stated that we did not want him at our booth. And it was after that that I heard the reports that Hars is referring to of him having been there. And so that would be one such instance of talking about testing the quote-unquote borders of his ban.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this isn't the first time that he's also tested these quote-unquote borders of the ban.
That is correct. I am aware of at least 2 other instances, one of which where he was present at the Sherrod soccer fields during Ravenstone's games. He said to me that his intention was not to skirt, or to test the borders of his ban, that he had been with a different Amped Guarder who had stopped by there, and so he was present for that. He did mention encountering some players and said that he felt it would be more awkward if he ignored them, so he did converse with them. By his account, they approached him. However, he didn't give me their names, so I have no way to contact them and verify that. He was also present at the place, I forget the name of the business, but the place where Ravenstone holds their ANS nights. And he had told me about that one, that he was, what did he say? It was somebody's birthday, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but long story short, he gave a reason for being there that had nothing to do with Amped Guard.
I also heard there was an incident of him in a parking lot of hanging around the parking lot of somebody's mid-reign during their mid-reign.
Yes, that was for Ravenstones. I was there for that one.
Oh, I hadn't heard about that one. Anyway,
So I just want to make it very obvious to anyone that listens to this that he has constantly, although a couple of these have reason, but he has constantly skirted these borders.
Right, and thank you for bringing that up, Rosedeath. Hars, did you have Boo's testimony ready?
Yes, I did.
Oh, real quick, I'm going to cut you back off just because I saw this message. Gideon had just posted that the incident I mentioned of the Sherrod soccer fields and the Ravenstone mid-reign incident was the same incident. Go ahead.
Okay.
Alright then. Okay, so what she had to say was, and this was kind of, I think this was like typed through her phone or something, I'm not sure, but it said, I don't know the whole story. First time I heard about this, so this is the first time I heard about him being banned, so I didn't pay much mind to it because everyone does have a right to an opinion. But last time I talked to him, he was trying to quote-unquote get with me back at Wolfscry, so I paid no mind to what he had to say, to be honest. But I know he does say things without thinking, and I feel that his ban shouldn't be shortened because even though he claims to defend Goran, he doesn't need to push himself in conversations that he happens to hear wait, hold on, what? It's nice that he did that, but I don't know both sides of the story. I didn't really even get what happened or heard that he had been banned. Okay, so I know this doesn't really add much to the point of this doesn't really add much proof as far as witness testimony to what exactly was going on at the Ren Fair, but I believe that still does emphasize a few of the red flags that to his character itself.
Additionally, I'd like to speak on after he was banned, he has continued to contact multiple people in Aster Winds, and most people up here have just kind of smiled and nodded. I mean, he didn't break any rules because technically he was contacting people one-on-one, which is completely legal. However, some of those were a little strange, including contacting one of the women that he offended and was banned because of. And that is my former prime minister, who is now in Texas, or heading towards Texas. But he continually contacted her until she finally told him to leave her alone. And at such time, he finally did.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to invite Minnie into the chat room to discuss to discuss what William has been discussing with him. So, Minnie, come on in.
Howdy, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Cool. Full disclosure, I also have Deli sitting next to me because he's chilling at my house right now. But just so you guys are aware that he's in the room. I don't think it matters public, but you know. So I guess over the last year or 6 months or so, Williams sent me messages occasionally on Facebook, usually asking for advice about the armor that he was working on and things like that, and I tried to be generally cordial and just engage in conversation with him when I could, and so on and so forth. Occasionally he's contacted me saying that he was frustrated by things or confused by the corpora / bylaw and admin manual, and I would work through that with him to kind of explain what was going on. Most recently, and this was back sorry, I'm scrolling back to get the actual date here, June 5th, he contacted me expressing some frustrations that he felt, or perceived anyway, that he was being told he wasn't allowed to go to the park or go to the Ren Fair and so on and so forth, due to his AMP card ban. Obviously, I told him that was nonsense, in the politest possible way, and it sounds like you guys talked about that a little bit ago as well, which is great. So we had this big long conversation where he was frustrated by a whole bunch of stuff, and I was kind of going back and forth with him, and I have both a text and picture transcript of that I can post a link to. It's in a Google Doc, so folks can see it if they'd like, where basically he sort of came to the point in the conversation where he was saying that he wanted to help Northreach run Wolf's Cry and just volunteer and so on and so forth, but would need his ban lifted 9 days early. So it's important to note at this point that I have only gotten one side of the story up until now, and that was his. And so I had talked to him about how, I was willing to talk to the Council of Crowns / Lucian about the possibility of having that ban lifted 9 days early. But one of the things that I said was that I would talk to Lucian and that I want to get his side of the story too, because I think everything should be out in the open, even if it kind of sucks, yada, yada, yada. And he said, absolutely, go ahead. So I think I've heard most of your guys' side of the story, sitting in the spectators and discussion room. And it dramatically changes, kind of what I'm here to do. So originally my plan had been to suggest that, if William were able to pass a Reeve test and were willing to volunteer to exclusively serve at Wolf's Cry, so in no capacity get to play or participate in anything other than helping people set stuff up and take out trash and so on and so forth, sort of as a I don't know, penitence thing, basically volunteer for 4 straight days or 3 straight days to help us run that, and his ban could be lifted 9 days early so he could do that. However, I told him that as part of me suggesting this, or being willing to talk about it, that I was going to ask for the other side of the story. Having heard that, I'm not super interested in endorsing that plan anymore, but I still think it's important for you guys to be aware of the fact that, he did want me to do that, and I was willing to at one point. But he definitely left out some pretty crucial pieces of information.
All right, thank you, Minnie. Couple points that I had not mentioned because I wanted to let Minnie do his talking before we continued. When I spoke with William about this plan, I told him the same thing I believe I told Minnie. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I only told William. But I told him that while we would discuss it as a council, the power to lift his ban 9 days early does not lie with this council. It would lie with the all thing. So the most that we could do is discuss it as a council and then put it on the Northreach all thing as an agenda item, which he was totally cool with. Since that conversation, however, there has also been expressed interest from a few members of the council in extending William's ban to an indefinite status. And so at this time, I would like to offer the chance for anyone who is in favor of that opinion to discuss why.
In favor
Please,
of
do you want me to
shortening
go
or
back to the
extending?
spectators now?
I'm sorry, what was that, Minnie?
Do you want me to go back down to spectators and discussion now? Or do you guys have questions for me?
Let's start there. Did anyone have questions for Minnie? Nope, I think we're good, man. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, as I said that, Rose Death was about to talk. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say I was good, and that was a very thorough presentation.
Okay, good deal. So, Hars, I believe when I had said that I would open the floor, it looked like you were trying to speak.
Yeah, I was just asking in favor of shortening or extending his ban.
I'm sorry, I see how my statement was unclear. In favor of extending.
I, for one, would be in favor of extending it because, like I said, he was caught on multiple occasions, not only just smack talking, like blatantly lying about why he was banned, but also like actively discouraging people from visiting our booth, and that to me sounds like a danger to just our group as a collective, not just to one or two parks.
I would second extending his ban for a couple of reasons. One is I have seen several banned players abide by their ban completely. This is the first time that I've actually seen a banned player kind of skirt around the rules a bit. And I don't think that's something that we need to take lightly. I've seen players come in or actually shorten their ban by the rules that we have in place, which is what he would need to do, William would need to do. And then I've seen people just wait out their ban patiently and come back as a regular player. So I think that this should not be ignored in any way.
So, as one of the original monarchs who was contacted about the original incident, for those who don't know, was an incident on the Astrowinds party bus of William being sexually aggressive towards several of the women on the bus and saying sexually suggestive things that he should not have been saying. Many of them took issue with it. This then was brought up to his monarch and myself, who both of us felt that he needed to take a break. We were then moved on to the Council of Crowns, and he was given a 6-month ban with an apology letter to the affected people, and then he was to have a 2-year probationary period after such time. I personally feel that as he has been basically going around his ban, he's blatantly attending things that he knows he shouldn't be there, and talking down about the park. I feel this falls under his probationary period, and I believe that this is a continuation of his bad judgment and a poor character to have within Northreach, and at this time I would strongly suggest a permanent ban.
And kind of seconding you there, Dieter, his original ban were not on light measures. It was actually kind of a light ban regarding what had happened.
I had actually just gotten a message from Michelle, actually, in regards to that. It reads as, back when he was first banned, William contacted her and a bunch of other people, myself included, actually. Yeah?
I don't know if it's just me, but you're sounding really warbly, and I'm only catching every couple words.
1 second. Hello?
Hey, there you are. That came in pretty clear.
Okay, cool. All right, so I had just gotten messaged by Michelle as another statement to add to this, and she had mentioned back when he was first banned, William contacted her in sort of a goodbye PM on Facebook, and he had done this with a couple of people, myself included, and but I ended up removing him shortly afterwards, so I didn't actually see what happened next. But according to her, shortly afterwards, he had posted a mini rant in response to his banning, and from here it reads, "As I recall, it basically claimed he'd done nothing wrong and wasn't going to come back. In my response, I expressed my disappointment in what appeared to be a refusal to make his apologies and take his punishment." That post also included a claim of feeling unsafe. When asked what made him feel that way, he said, "The fact that what I said as a joke has been chalked up to sexual harassment. From the conversation thus far, it doesn't sound like his attitude about it has changed." Did that come through okay?
Yeah.
So, as the Monarch whose players were the ones that he made these comments to, I can say that whether or not he intended it as a joke, he did not know any of these young ladies, and what he said was beyond the bounds of normal AmpGuard joking, and they all agreed on that. There's certain things that we as AmpGuarders joke about, which is fine, some of which is a slightly adult nature. He apparently made some comments that were way beyond that, even for somebody who was friends with one of these ladies.
Okay, so it sounds like at this time the council is at least in majority favor, if not unanimous, of extending his ban to an indefinite nature. The only thing I'm having a hang up on, and you guys, I apologize, I meant to do this before this meeting. I just want to be sure, because we have pushed this boundary in the past. We, as the council, do have the authority to do that, yes?
Under the original agreement of his ban, he himself agreed to a 6-month ban with a apology letter and a 2-year probationary period, at which point, if he violated that probation at any time, he would be immediately terminated from AmpGuard. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. So I believe this falls under the original ban agreement that we all made, and I believe that allows us the power to basically just ominous him out of the game.
You were correct. I had forgotten about that part. Thank you very much. So, okay, at the conclusion of this meeting, I will contact Mr. Crosslin and inform him, and I'll throw in the included information about the appeal process that he and every other banned or suspended member is willing or is able to go through via the proper channels.
I would also, I know this is something you have to do, and I'm sorry this is a regrettable position you have to go through, but I would also strongly suggest to him that he be more careful in what he says about Northreach and AmpGuard in Alaska, and that if he continues in this vein, that we will send him a cease and desist order. If that is not obeyed, we then will pursue legal action against him for slander.
I will notify him.
I would second that as well.
Likewise.
So, do we need to bring this to an actual vote?
Yeah, you know what? Let's just for official sake.
So real quick, was an apology letter ever actually written?
Yes, it was written, delivered to me, and then I delivered it to the affected ladies.
And did it appear sincere?
Um, uh, it was a I'm sorry, kind of a backhanded sorry. More of I don't want to do a full term. I want to do 6 months. So, oops.
And so we're kind of agreeing to extend his ban indefinitely because he was initially banned and he keeps pushing it again and again, and then proceeded to badmouth the amp guard there at the Ren Fair.
To be honest, I'd actually like to state that this is just reinstating his original ban of a permanent ban because he has violated his probation.
But for those reasons, Arian, yes. So, I mean, both of those as one reason. He has violated the terms of his probation for the reasons you listed. Or by
Right,
those.
I just wanted to sum up and clarify. Thank you.
Not a problem. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do the vote here real quick. Astor wins.
Yes.
Lupin Moon.
Yes.
Frozen Coast.
Frozen Coast says yes, he's violated his terms.
Ravenstone, and we'll give a second for getting into message. Never mind, he's super on top of stuff and he voted yes. Icefire Bay.
Yes.
All right, and Northreach votes yes as well, making it a unanimous decision of this council. And as I said, I will notify him of all of the previously discussed things to notify him of. And with that, we're going to move right into the next topic on our agenda, which is State Fair Autocrat. There's not a lot to do on this topic because at this time, the request for bid on the forums has had no responses. However, on the forums, the request for bid does state that it's open until midnight on June 30th. So what we as a council need to do is get fairly active at looking for interested parties to volunteer for that position and get them to put a bid in.
I honestly had another thing I would like to add to this since we're talking about it. Can we also, after this, talk about the 4th of July in Frozen Coast?
Yeah, sure. We can definitely do that. I'm going to throw that on the agenda right below SenshiCon Highland Games.
Cool.
Were there questions, comments, concerns on the State Fair Autocrat bit?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Okay, sweet.
Sorry.
Okay, sweet. I thought so as well. Sorry, what was that, Rose Death?
Start hyping it up.
Yeah. So that brings us to SenshiCon / Highland Games. I'm going to start addressing the Highland Games bit because I know that this was listed as an item on the proposed items to add to the agenda by HARS. And I've been questioned if we are doing the Highland Games or not this year. And the answer I've given thus far is that we didn't put down a line item for it itself in the budget when we wrote it. It was one of the events that could potentially be paid for under miscellaneous. And the reason I grouped these two together is because this council has decided to use our miscellaneous events budget on SenshiCon. And so we don't have the funds to do the Highland Games this year. And on that note, the last time we as a council talked about SenshiCon was Arian was trying to get a booth reserved for us. And Arian, do you have any updates or comments on that?
Yes, I got us a one booth reserved, and Headline already confirmed that she sent the check for that.
Excellent. So, I'm sorry. I know this somewhere in the back of my brain, but SenshiCon is when?
September 30th and October 1st.
And kind of off topic, does anybody know when the Highland games are?
I do not. Gideon says it is June 24th.
I would say it's last minute, but at the same time, last year we didn't even plan for it, and we just kind of had our group make a surprise appearance on site. By the way, Gideon, I meant to ask actually, do you have any sort of recollection of how that actually went down?
Okay, so while Gideon's typing that up, the reason I asked about the date for SenshiCon, so far we have opened requests for bids, or closed them rather. Sorry, we've closed them 2 months out from the date of the event, which puts the request for bid by that template would close on June 30th, which, or I'm sorry, July 30th, which is actually after the end of this reign. So either we would need to close it further out than that so that it still falls within this council's jurisdiction, or we would need to inform the incoming Council of Crowns that one of the first things they may want to turn their attention to is that Autocrat. And to be honest, I'm relatively comfortable with either of those plans. So, what are the council's thoughts on that?
I would be okay with basically relaying that message to the incoming monarchs.
I would agree. We do have since we have the space reserved, all it really is a matter of now is just contacting the necessary people to make sure we have everything organized.
And I could do the official Autocrat on that if that's something that would help make things move smoother.
Certainly. Either way we decide to go, you are, of course, absolutely welcome to put in a bid yourself, even if it's being done by this council.
All right, and actually, this next term, looks like I probably won't be running because she has expressed interest in running for Monarch. So I'm going to give him a chance at that and run for champion instead.
Okay. So, do you have an opinion on whether you would like to see it done by this council or the incoming?
I have full confidence in this one or the next.
Okay. Rosedeath, Dieter, do either of you Gideon, do you have thoughts on it?
Not particularly. Sounds like it's hand.
I would actually be confident in leaving this to Arian for this, since she's already done most of the steps as it is. It's really just a matter of getting from point A to point B now. But with that being said, Arian, if you do need any assistance, you know how to reach me.
That I do. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Gideon just posted a message basically saying the same thing, that he doesn't have thoughts, and it sounds to him like Arian is doing the job already, which I can agree with. So she's expressed that she's willing. If this council's comfortable with it, I don't have a problem with appointing Arian to be the autocrat of that event.
Actually, I think it'd be kind of cool to see Ishfar strong-arming an event for the entire group.
I would second that.
I'm assuming that was I would second that, but it was very choppy. He's not correcting me, so I must be right. All right. So if nobody has further opinions,
I guess the real question then, back to the Highland Games, would be just, I guess, contacting the people who run the show and see if there's something we can do for them. Like, I don't know, maybe a shot in the dark. Maybe they got it just free of the draw or something like that. Wishful thinking, I know, but can't hurt to ask.
Well, I actually had a thought on that if we have a moment to talk on it.
sure. But before we do that, I would like to officially state, Arian, you're hired. You are officially the Autocrat of SenshiCon.
Fantastic. I will do you guys justice.
Okay. Tell us your thought, Rosath. Let's chat Highland Games.
So, honestly, I don't have a lot of the information in front of me, like how much a booth would cost, if it's even available at this point, since it's drawing closer. But it definitely seems like, we don't want to miss out on an event, even if it's just a presentation table or whatever have you. So my thought was to cover the cost, since we don't really have a budget on it right now, is doing a Bribe the Reeve week across Northreach and applying the funds towards the Scotland Games. It's pretty simple thought, but I'm sure there's more that would have to go into it.
Yeah, there's... In theory... Actually, you know what? Hars, go ahead.
My only thought on that is just with how short a notice that is, because this weekend we have a Principality Day going on that's welcoming the new people that we recruit from the Ren Fair over for like a big barbecue event that's going on in Lipin Moon. So I'm not really sure if we could implement it there, and if we waited the next week, then that would be the Highland Games weekend, so I don't know. It kind of feels like a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is while in theory that is a good plan, the couple problems we run into is that no matter where the money may come from, in order to spend Northreach's money, we have to have it approved in the budget. The budget is basically us. It's an agreement between us and the populace saying, hey, this is how much money you have. This is what we're going to spend it on. And the populace saying, all right, sounds good. So we would have to have the budget amended, which we don't have time for. And like Hars was saying, it's in 2 weeks, and next week is new member barbecue. So the last information I received stated that a booth space at the Highland Games was $230. So to hold a Bribe the Reeve in 1 week to try and raise that much or more, when one of the parks won't be able to do it because they're hosting newbie barbecue, it's really just not feasible.
So would it be possible to just have a straight up donation towards that?
In theory, but again, that comes back to the budget issue. Even if we have the money, we can't spend it without the populace's permission. So, because it's not our money, it's their money.
Well, right, but if it's purely a donation and nobody's actually gaining something like bribing the Reeve or something, they're donating for the specific purpose of having a booth at the Highland Games to then generate further revenues for Amp because I think Adeline said you made over $1,000 with the fighter ring last year.
Well, I do agree that would be a loss. At the same time, I would like to propose that if for some reason we aren't able to do Highland Games this year, we should at least set a standard procedure of setting that up so we don't run across the situation again. Like, make room for it in the budget, contact the necessary people at the right times, etc.
Certainly, this whole this annual budget has sort of been a beta test, I suppose. This is the first time we've implemented a year-long budget, and we are working through it, and we're finding faults. We're finding things that we need to alert the next council that writes a budget to be on the lookout for, and this is clearly one of them. I think the best thing we can do at this time is contact the appropriate people and tell them that unfortunately this year our organization does not have the budget to be at their event. We would be very interested in if they have any kind of demo time or anything that we can get at no cost, then absolutely. And we have every intention of making it next year.
I can agree to that. Sometimes the best way to learn a lesson is by screwing up.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, man.
Sounds good.
All right. Hars, do you have the contact information for those people?
I actually do not, but I believe it's probably saved on the Northreach email. I'd have to double check that.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. One of my bigger faults is I forget that email even exists. But yes, you're probably right. It's probably there. Okay. Good deal.
For all I know, though, this could have also been a super secret project too by Ravenstone at the time. So, for all I know, it might not be, and it was just handled under personal emails. But no harm in looking. Oh, Gideon mentioned in the chat saying Hadeland should have it. We spoke on it briefly in February.
Okay, good deal. I'll contact her then.
Can I interject real quick? So Arian did bring up that if a donor put forward money for the Highland Games, would that be feasible? According to our bylaws 8.6.1 and 8.6.3, if a donor gives us money and directs that it is to be used for the application to the Highland Games, we would be able to immediately use that money per the board of directors to do as directed by the donor.
Okay. Just for clarity's sake, could you actually read the how that's written, those 2 points for us?
I'm going back and forth between my phone and my and the bylaws right now, but I will see if I can't write it down or something, unless somebody else can pull it up real quick.
If I can share my thought on that, my only thing on that is it's not really an issue of money at this point. I think it's more an issue of time, because I know a lot of booths, at least this is how it works at the Ren Fair, is booked off pretty well in advance, and I know there's like a finite amount of space that they can give, but I don't know if the same applies to Highland Games, as I've never been there myself. So I think if we did want to do this, we'll pretty much have to hit the ground running in terms of making the right contact.
Sure. Actually, okay, here, new plan. Dieter, can you, at your earliest convenience, even if it's at the conclusion of the meeting tonight, can you post, because I've already forgotten, like somewhere on the Council of Crowns Facebook page, can you post which bylaws points you said that was, so that we can all look at it? And I will get the contact information and see if it's even possible for us to still get in. I'm kind of agreeing with Hars here. I really don't think it's feasible, especially with New Member Barbecue next weekend. But I'll gather information for the interested parties. I'll gather information and see what we can do.
Okay. Again, those points are 8.6.1 and 8.6.3 in the bylaws. And I will post those to the Council of Crowns.
Thank you. I do not have a writing utensil at the moment, so I appreciate that.
June 24th, is that also the same week of the Gathering of the Clans, or is that a different weekend?
No, Gathering of the Clans is in July.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, here it is. Minnie had posted this in the chat saying 8.6.1 all donations of any nature, unless designated for a specific purpose, shall be used for purposes as the Board of Directors may direct, as noted in Article 4, Section 4. 8.6.2 at the discretion of the Board of Directors, the corporation may raise revenues through fundraising activities. The donations, the Board of Directors has the right to refuse any donations made or offered, but to the corporation with or without cause and sole discretion. And point 3, donors may make donations to or for the use of the corporation by naming or otherwise identifying the corporation in the gift transfer for the use of the corporation, accepts and agrees to all the terms of these bylaws. Further, each donor specifically provides that Any fund created as a result of such donation shall be subject to the provisions in these bylaws relating in the presumptions of the donor's intent, the variance from the donor's directions for amendments and dissolution, and to all other terms of the bylaw as amended from time to time.
Okay, so yes, theoretically, if money were donated for that purpose, it could be used for that purpose. But again, I have to agree with Hars that I think time is going to be our biggest hurdle more than money. But yeah, I'll get the contact information and I'll see what, if anything, can be done. Okay, so Rose Death, you wanted to talk about the 4th of July.
Yeah, so it's coming up here pretty soon, and we don't have a person to run it.
Yeah, we haven't even received a bid for that, have we?
In fairness,
No, we have not.
In fairness, we haven't been posting a lot about our bids. At least we haven't been actively keeping up on them.
Yeah, you're right. We definitely should have been doing that. Yeah, so I mean, let's lump that in with the state fair and with higher urgency. Let's get the word out and see if we have any interested parties. Rose Death being the regional monarch in whose region that event is, do you know anyone who might be interested in autocrating that?
I was actually going to suggest that I talk to my top 5 and request permission to give it to one of my top 5.
Okay, I have to ask, are you saying give it to one of your top 5, like if one of them comes forward when you talk to them, or do you have one in mind?
Well, we have been talking a bit, and there has been some interest in the top 5 between Arthas, Dusk, and Red, and myself, to be honest. But I wouldn't give it to myself. But because of the time frame, we talked about it last weekend. We noticed how close it was, and we were kind of throwing ideas around as a group.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, literally anyone can submit a bid. It can be one of your top 5, it can be you. Anyone who's interested can submit a bid. So yeah, that's incredibly feasible.
Yeah, and my only thought or concern is that we're going to have another Council of Crowns meeting in 2 weeks where we'll probably be voting on these bids. However, that's going to only give us a couple of weeks to actually work out the event. So I know that the event needs to be paid for ahead of time, and sooner the better in this case, because there's a lot of booths that get taken up very quickly. So I don't know if we can wait the 2 weeks and still make it happen.
Right. Yep, that's a very good point. I think that this is something that can either be handled by the council online, or honestly, if everyone's comfortable with it, I'm quite certain that I have the executive authority to appoint an autocrat. So if, in the interest of time, I can probably make that decision executively. So yeah, talk to your top 5 and get back to me.
Cool beans, will do.
Okay, with that, the last item on our agenda tonight is higher level awards, which, as has been discussed online, is something that the Council of Crowns is one of the few things the Council of Crowns will have to handle behind closed doors, just because we don't want to spoil the surprise.
I think we can continue it at the meeting. I think we can continue it at the meeting and just call for a 10-minute recess or something,
Yeah. What I was gonna say is, if you guys would allow me, I would actually like to motion that we do this online for a variety of reasons. The first of which being that I think it would be beneficial to actually see everyone who's suggested for titles, paragonship, whatnot, to see the case written out, because I know we have all these cases right now. They're kind of scattered amongst chats and whatnot, but it would be good to see the cases for them and why they're suggested for them written out. It would accomplish only the Council of Crowns is going to see it, and also because it's 8:30 at night and I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for work, so I would rather not be in this meeting for. I mean, this conversation is going to take at least 30 more minutes, possibly longer.
I think I can agree to that then, because I gotta be up early tomorrow too.
I agree to it. We were handling it just fine in the chat for this. I think that is a much better idea than handling it here.
I'm fine with that, but can I ask for a little bit more organization? Perhaps talking about these, making a post person by person for whatever it may be, title or otherwise, Paragon, and then discussing it in the comments on that post in the Council of Crowns group, so it doesn't get as lost in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry that I was not super clear. When I mentioned that it would be helpful to see them all written out, that is what I had in mind. Exactly what you're describing. I didn't relay that, and I apologize, but yes, that is my plan.
Cool beans.
Alright then, I guess are we good to go?
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you all. Good night, and I will chat with you on the Facebook.